Good afternoon, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I'm Teresa Holmes, Club President. Thank you all for joining us today. As we open today's meeting, we do so with sad news of the death of a longtime member, Paul Fleer. He passed away on January 27th at the age of 97. Paul was formerly the executive director of the Health Planning Council, and he joined our Rotary Club in 1972. He served for many years on our club's meeting assistance committee, and you'd often see him helping put away the name badges after our weekly meetings. He held 2 Paul Harris Fellows, and our club has made a $100 contribution to the Madison Rotary Foundation to establish a memorial fund in Paul's name. Members wishing to make a contribution may send their gifts to the Rotary office. We extend our condolences to Paul's wife, Beatrice, and to his family. Let's pause for a moment of silence in memory of Rotarian Paul Fleer. Today's meeting is sponsored by Bob Sorge and the Madison Community Foundation, and our thanks to him and them all for their support in today's meeting. Since we are not able to meet in person, we have our sponsor greet our members. They are providing a brief Our thanks to Bob and the Madison Community Foundation for sponsorship of today's luncheon. We will have a video of their greeting in the Friday Rotary email. Thanks again, Bob. Let's direct our attention to the opening music. Jeff and Angela Bartell will lead us in singing our patriotic song, You're a Grand Old Flag. We're continuing our series of reports about our new committee structure that started July 1st. Showing on the screen is the new organizational chart. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, our committees are now organized under 5 team leaders. It's designed that way so that committees within a team would be able to meet with one another and are more aware of what the other committees are doing. The structure also allows for the building of more synergy within the committees, and the chairs can learn and share ideas with other committee chairs. Our 5 team leaders have been meeting regularly with their committee chairs and their teams. Today, we are going to hear from Mary Thompson, who is our member experience team leader. Mary is now going to tell us what the team has been doing so far this Rotary year. Mary?
And thank you, President Teresa. I'm really happy to be here to represent our team. It's been a great year so far. Coming into this team leader role, I was the past co-chair of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion with President Teresa, and prior to that, the Welcome Committee chair. So I feel that we've been really grounded in this work for a long time, but the team has been up to a lot. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the structure of the member experience team, talk about the accomplishments, and then how do we measure our success? And because we really think what gets measured gets done. So with that, we'll move to the first slide. The governance committee last year created this structure, and the mission is to SOAR. And this is an acronym, so each letter stands for something. The first is to select the Rotarian member, to onboard them appropriately, to engage them early and often, and to retain them. So it's really the life cycle of a Rotarian, all based on our diversity, equity, inclusion commitment, which is in the bottom of our screen. Ron Luskin has been so aptly leading this team, and would go to the next slide, please. I thought we'd show a comparison of our members year over year, and of course we all know that we were deep into the pandemic last year. And year to date, which is through December, so it had been last year, 19 members have joined compared to 4 the year previous. So Ron has been busy at work. He's also focused very intentionally on underrepresented classifications. And those are, just so you know, we're recruiting in these areas specifically: advertising and PR, religion, financial services, health services, and science and tech. The other thing that I think will help our new members is we're streamlining the membership process, and we'll decrease the lag time and make it simpler. Also, his committee is responsible for producing a newsletter twice a year, and Ron tells me the next one is due out in a month or so. On the next slide, we talk about the O in SOAR, orientation and onboarding, led by Bob Dindorf. Our focus here is really to create this concept of a 3-legged stool. The new member is given a checklist to give some direction and ownership to that, but supported by this person's sponsor, and if the new member would like a mentor, that mentor would be included in that 3-legged stool. So I do have a call to action here. If people are interested in becoming a mentor for new members, please contact Bob. The next slide is our Activate Engage. And Ashley Quinto-Powell just joined us in the room. She's been a real spark plug to focus on this new initiative, which is to engage new members early. So we found that in our data that members tend to leave our club if they're not engaged and involved in the first 3 years. She's also created this Connect Challenge, which is a social media campaign. She's going to talk about that later today, I think right following my presentation. So more to come. And contacting new members and inviting them out to coffee or drinks. And she has a whole team of volunteers that are helping her do that. And she invites new members to greet Rotarians every Wednesday in kind of a reception line. So ways to get people involved early, along with the sponsor and mentor. Another avenue for engagement is the fellowship group, and that's on the next slide. And that's led by Juan Jose Lopez. He ensures the fellowship groups support the interests of the members and align to the governance structure. And then Martha Sullivan is responsible for the retention aspect of it. I'd like to focus on this for just a couple of minutes and take a look at our exits year over year. So this is through December of last year and the year before. We had 33 exits compared to 30. The other new thing that we're doing is removing those exits that are uncontrollable. And those uncontrollable reasons are listed at the bottom of the slide, but they include things like death, people have moved away, or just can't get downtown anymore. And 16 or 48%, almost half of the reasons are uncontrollable. And that trends comparably to last year, 13 and 43%. So we're taking that out of our data and just focusing on the controllable. 17 or 52% of the reasons are controllable. And that's exactly the same year over year. Our membership, now if you remember, we gained 19 new members, we lost 17, a net 2 up, and so our gain, our total membership for the year now, as of year end, is 416 members. So what do we do then on those exits that we think are controllable? We've sent out a survey, but we'll also do a telephone follow-up and try to find out why people joined in the first place and what made them leave. Oftentimes we hear that they're too busy or they're traveling or they just can't make it. So there'll be more to come on that. The other measurement, and all of you have a chance to give feedback, and that's on the engagement survey. We're very proud to announce that our first engagement survey went out this year. We've changed from satisfaction to Rotary to how engaged are you? And we'll be measuring that and maybe following up with other questions and focus groups, tweaking the survey. But we'll establish the benchmark this year, and that's been led by Lynette Fonz. She plans to deliver that total census information later this month to the club. Cheryl DeMars heads up our caring subcommittee, and Willie Larkin rounds out the retention committee with vocational day. So where does that lead us? What's next? We will continue, and that's next slide, Jason, thank you. Our success measurements will be to continue to report on new members, track the exiting members, the controllable versus uncontrollable, improve those benchmarks on the engagement survey results year over year. We do that. We meet bi-monthly. We try to coordinate all of our efforts. We update each other through Google Sheets in real time, and then we report out as needed to both the board and to members. So I really appreciate the group effort. You all are a part of this as club membership, and we appreciate all your feedback. Thank you very much. President Teresa?
Thank you for your report, Mary. There are lots of things going on as a result of our new governance structure. And so Rotarians, I hope each week, as we're giving you a little bit of information, you're getting and becoming more informed. Today's Did You Know segment, I'm going to focus on member connections. So we will transition back to more in-person meetings. And we'd love to hear your ideas on ways for members to actually make more connections while in the room. So please feel free to email me or the Rotary office or our Activate and Engagement Chair, Ashley Powell. We're looking for more creative ideas regarding ways to connect while in the room. Ashley Quinto Powell chairs our Activate and Engagement Committee that is a part of the member experience team that Mary just talked about. Ashley announced a members connection opportunity a few months ago, and she is going to come and give us a summary report of that activity. Ashley, welcome to the podium.
Thank you very much, President Teresa. I'm bonkers excited to be here as always. They call me the spark plug for a very good reason. Thank you all for joining us on the YouTubes. I wish that we were in person, and I look forward to seeing you there. So we had a rather rousing Connect event, and I have to tell you, it was mostly hopped along on the back of our own President Teresa, who I think was in at least 3 places at once on more than 2 occasions. But we had lots of people participate in the Connect Challenge. So what I tasked our members with doing was, if you were having coffee with another Rotarian or spotted another Rotarian in the Madison wild, that you would take a selfie of the 2 of you and tag both the other person and the Downtown Madison Rotary on social media. And I'm proud to say that we had lots and lots of engagement. And I have some very, some standouts. In 3rd place, Jason Barron. I'd also like to point out that one of his connects was in Paris. Thank you for going the extra 3,000 miles. In 2nd place, giving number 1 a real run for her money, Becky Steinhoff. Becky, how are you in so many places at once? Well, I can tell you, right next to our winner, Teresa Holmes. Congratulations, Teresa. Thank you. So each of you will be receiving a Starbucks gift certificate from yours truly. And you should absolutely use that Starbucks gift certificate to take another Rotarian out for coffee. Hey, Teresa, should we do this again?
Absolutely, Rotarians.
All right, awesome. Okay, friends, listen. She's not listening. We have to beat her at this game. We can't let her be the one who beats us next time. So I'm going to have coffee with as many people as humanly possible, like I do. And I hope you'll join me. Thank you so much, Rotarians.
Thank you, Ashley, for such a wonderful and engaging report. And by the way, I'm not sure if the connect that she and I made when we went ice skating, or maybe she was ice skating and I was by the fire pit, if that one was counted. But if not, thank you, Rotarians. I am glad to lead by example. All right, announcements. At this time every year, we announce the names of our Madison Rotary Foundation Board of Trustees. This year's nominees for 4-year terms on the Madison Rotary Foundation Board of Trustees beginning July 1 are Dr. Willie Larkin, Anita Muhammad, and Alex Kierskerdo. The election of new trustees will take place at the annual meeting of the Madison Rotary Foundation just before our regular Rotary Luncheon on March 9th. As prescribed by the Foundation's bylaws, any 10 members of the Madison Rotary Club may submit in writing, signed by 10 members, any additional names or names to the Foundation Secretary, Pat Jenkins, and send to the Rotary office for inclusion on the ballot. All names submitted prior to March 1st shall be included on the ballot. Congratulations, nominees. A quick follow-up to last week's report on our community grants campaign. First of all, I would like to thank every single one of you Rotarians for making contributions. Some of you actually made more than one gift, and all gifts are sincerely appreciated. Remember, we are granting gifts to those in the community who are doing great things. Here is the final tally. We had a goal of $150,000, and we raised $151,227.11. $20,000 more than last year's campaign. Rotarians, you are awesome. Again, we had 84% of our members participating. And thanks to Jason Ilstrup and his team for running such a successful campaign. And again, Rotarians, thank all of you for your contributions towards helping us to meet our goal. In December, Jennifer Weitzman announced the launch of a Lands End website with specific Rotary Club of Madison branding for a number of different clothing items, as you see on the screen. I've heard from a few members who've received their orders last week, and I would like to have a short Lands End Rotary Club of Madison fashion show at an upcoming meeting. If you've ordered clothing, could you please send a quick email to the Rotary office to let us know? We'd like you to either take a photo of you wearing your items, and again, in the future, would really appreciate it if you'd be willing to show them off at an upcoming meeting. Please contact the office so we can get a good sampling of the clothing items. We have another Braver Angels workshop coming for interested Rotarians at the end of the month. Our hope is that while political polarization in the United States is at an all-time high, Braver Angels workshops can provide the ability for the Blues and the Reds to work together with constructive conversation. The cost to attend one of the all-day sessions scheduled February 25th or February 26th at Holy Wisdom Monastery is $30, which covers the room rental and your lunch fees. There was also a link in this morning's email if you'd like to sign up. Birthdays. We have birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor or wisdom that complements our Rotary mission. We also encourage members to make an age-appropriate gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation, rounded up to $100 for our club's Synergy Scholarship Fund. January 30th, Chuck Elliott, who shares this message. You know you are getting older when you have a party and the neighbors don't even realize it. January 31st, Dennis Berkey. January 31st, Dave Duco. January 31st, new member being Rikers. February 1st, Mike Hosley. February 2nd, Dan Thompson. February 2nd, Cassidy Wardenweiler, who says, I'd like to take a moment to give thanks for the health and safety of my family and friends. I agree. February 3rd, Val Lightson. And February 14th, or February 4th, Cheryl Whittaker. Cheryl co-chairs our Rotary Scholar Mentor Committee, and she shares the following. Mentors change lives, but students change mentors' lives more, which sums up my experience as a Rotary mentor of 3 amazing scholars over the years. Are you game to have a life-changing experience? Sign up to mentor a Rotary Scholar this year. You can contact our Rotary office if you'd like to be matched with one of your new class of scholars that will meet at the Rotary on June 1st. Awesome message, Cheryl. Thanks to our celebrants for their contributions to the Madison Rotary Foundation. Please join me in wishing them a happy birthday. Casey Okers will play Happy Birthday on the piano with her children, Dylan and Kendall, leading us in the singing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
We have members in the news to share. Congratulations to Kaleem Kerr and his wife, Lisa Payton Kerr, who recently received the Brian Howell Excellence in Innovation Award. Madison Magazine, February 22nd. And Cheryl Cato and Gloria Reyes were pictured and quoted in an article titled The Intersectionality of Civil Rights and Democracy. Community voices reflect on the 2022 Civil Rights Agenda. Now, on to our program. Today's speaker is Robert Beezat, who is going to talk to us about character-based management. Robert has managed a broad range of organizations, and he helped start and became the eventual owner of a management consulting firm serving a national clientele. As a management consultant, he has worked with over 350 public, private, and not-for-profit organizations around the country. He also has served as an adjunct faculty member at several universities, teaching businesses, human resource, and supervisory management courses. Robert is also the author of Character-Based Management, a key to more productive and effective organizations. Had we been in person, he would be selling copies of his book as a convenience to our members. However, since we're online today, live streaming, I would like to mention that you can find his book on Amazon and the cost is $10. We look forward to your presentation, Robert, and we have made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thanks to you for speaking to us today. I'd also like to mention that we will have Q&A with our speaker as time allows, and I'll be watching the chat for your questions for our speaker. Rotarians, let's welcome Robert to our podium.
Well, thank you very much, Teresa. I don't know how I can follow you and Ashley and maintain that same high level of enthusiasm and energy, but I'll do my best. Thank you for inviting me here today. I've spoken to over 125 Rotary clubs in kind of northeastern Illinois, southeastern Wisconsin, since I wrote my first book 10 years ago called Knowing and Loving the Keys to Real Happiness. And one of the things I really enjoy about speaking to Rotaries is to hear all the good things you're doing. Just as you talked a little bit about before my coming on here. I wrote an article and sent it into Rotary, and some of the clubs have used it. I call it Good News, It's Rotary Day. Because like this morning, I drove over here from Burlington, Wisconsin, where I now live, and you listen to the weather and the traffic and all the bad news, and then it comes at you again. And it's been a real pleasure to come to Rotary clubs because you hear good news. Not only good news of things that your club is doing or your members are doing as part of the club, but as just in the community. And it's a lot of Rotary clubs have the Happy Dollars, which you celebrated birthdays today, but I know I've been at many clubs, and that's always a pretty joyful time also. So I'm glad to be here. I'm going to talk about my book a little bit, and it's called Character-Based Management. And I was teaching a class at a university in the Chicago area probably 12 years ago or so, and it was a supervisory management class. And the introduction to the business, the textbook, there was a quote in the introduction, and it said, "In making decisions, the moral character of the decision maker determines the quality of the decisions." And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because I've taught classes in supervisory management. I've worked with all kinds of organizations, public, private, not-for-profit groups to build organization effectiveness. And so I had no idea who Henri Fayol was. So I did look him up, and he was a French mining engineer who actually wrote probably that we can tell anyway, the first management textbook, even before anything was written in this country. He wrote it in about 1915. And I've thought about it for years because it really got my attention. Because one of the things when I do supervisory and management training with groups, I just always ask them, usually there's a group of 10, 15 sitting around a table, to think of the worst boss they ever had. And everybody kind of smiles. And I know when I think of the worst boss I ever had, I still get the urge to leap across the table and punch him, but I knew that was not a good professional move to do. And then I ask people just to take a minute or two and jot down 2 or 3 words or phrases of why that person was the worst boss they ever had. And after they do that, they come up with a list with these kinds of words on it. They were liars, they were lazy, they were autocratic, bully, phony, explodes, demeaning, and so on. Usually with a group of 12 to 15 people, they'll come up with about 40 or 45 terms, all very similar. That was consistent across work I did with private businesses, not-for-profits, municipal governments that I worked with. The list was very similar. You couldn't tell the difference from place to place. So then after I asked them to think about the worst boss they ever had, I'd ask them to think about the best boss they ever had. And I know over the years I've had good bosses that I learned a lot from, and I ask them to, again, just jot down 2 or 3 words or phrases of why that person was the best boss they ever had. And these are some of the words they come up with, some of the phrases. They're honest, good communicators, treats you with respect, wants you to succeed, helps you solve problems, stands behind you. And the list goes on, but usually the positive list is about half of what the negative list is. If I get to 25 positive ones, that's a group that's probably had some really good bosses over the years. But again, when I look at these words, both from a bad boss and a good boss, is that going back to that Fayol quote at the beginning, it really has to do with character. And the premise of the book is that our behaviors reflect our character. I remember when the 1 Minute Manager books came out, and I picked one up and read it, and they had some good ideas, but it was, to me at least, very surface oriented. It had no depth of who the person was, and I think we've all worked with people over the years who talk a good game, but they act totally different. I had a boss, the one I really wanted to punch, which I never did. He heard about win-win at some training thing he was at, and he came back and told us, well, we're going to really do this win-win stuff. And so we thought, well, let's give it a try. But we found after about 2 or 3 months, he was the only one who was going to win. He didn't care if anybody else won. In fact, if you lost, that was fine. So it's really your character, your behaviors are a reflection of your character, and it's something that I think we need to think about as our character. And our character greatly influences the quality and effectiveness of our decisions and the success of the people and organizations we manage. So kind of looking at our character, it's not only to be a better you, which we can be, but it really gets more done. And again, I've seen this in the organizations I've managed as well as so many that I've worked with over the years. That makes a big difference on if people can trust you and you help to bring out the best in them. So it's hard to define character, I think, but I look at it as a person who behaves in ways we find admirable and promote good outcomes. And bad character is the opposite, a person who behaves in ways most think are unlikable and result in negative outcomes. I do define it a little bit. I think it's a mixture of what we know, what we believe, our philosophies, our life experiences, and our interpersonal relationships. All of those things form our values and habits, and then they're expressed in our words and deeds, words and actions. So one of the things I've thought about over the years, because I've been in management I can't believe it, I'm going to be 80 in a few months, and I've been managing things since I was 22 years old. But I remember once when I was a city manager in a city in Minnesota, and I went to my first state conference of city managers, and I sat down next to an old guy. I was 27, and I figured, well, I'll just sit down next to this old guy, and I'll ask him some questions. He was probably only 50 or 55, but he looked old to me. I was only 27. And I asked him, I said, you've been in this business a while. How would you define management? And he said, it's getting work done with and through others that one person cannot do alone, which struck me. And then he said, which made me laugh, he said, if it weren't for the people, this job would be easy. And I think that's what we all do, that we manage people if we didn't have to. But you can't get anything done without the people. And you can get more done if you bring out the best in your people. So management is an art and a science is also a quote I've heard over the years. You probably all have also. I'd always kind of wondered what that meant. And again, having worked in management and for so many years, I kind of look at it as being able to integrate all the different aspects of what we do when we manage. And on the far right, as you look at the screen, the job knowledge, that's kind of the science of the quotation of it's an art and a science. In the middle are processes that we all use in different ways over the years. And on the left, it's who we are, what our values, our habits, our virtues, our character. And to integrate that for different situations and different people, I think that's the art of science. If we do that, to be able to do that, I think we really need to be a person of integrity. People that say one thing and do the same thing and not the opposite. One of the things when I think about mixing the art and science of it is I read a book about Einstein a few years ago, and I probably didn't understand half of the scientific part, but I know at one point somebody asked him to define genius. And his definition was the ability to see connections between things that no one else sees. And that's why I go back and, going the wrong direction here. Sorry, just a second. To be taking Einstein's definition, that's what I thought of this in terms of integrating all these things. And that's why I'm always a lifelong learner, because you never know what you're going to learn is going to help you bring together the art and science of management. So going back here. And then the sources of our character I talk a little bit about in the book. It's knowledge, what we know, what we believe, Our emotions, our relationships, and our role models, I think, all play an important part in that. And to improve our character, it's, again, not just to be a better person, which is important, but it really does improve productivity, effectiveness, and job satisfaction. And I know when I first started working full-time after I finished college, and that first summer I was working at a job and I was driving on Dan Ryan Expressway in Chicago to get to work, and I'm thinking, I used to be off in the summertime. I got to work now, and it really made me think about enjoying my work. And I think some of the things I write about in the book I think can help you do that, because if you bring everybody together and they're working hard together, you're getting more done, you're getting the job done effectively, and people like their work, including yourself. So. And just to tie it to Rotary a little bit, I think one of the most important elements in making a decision is to base that decision on what is true and real. And I like to look at some things on a continuum. And when it comes to knowing or getting to the truth, on the far right are some things I know 100% that I have complete knowledge of. And on the left are things I know pretty much nothing about. On the complete knowledge side, I know I'm alive, I'm speaking here today, and I'm going to die one of these days. That's 100% on that. Down at the bottom end, I always use nematodes as an example, and I don't know if anybody here knows what nematodes are, but if you're in medical field, they're basically roundworms. There's 10,000 different kinds. They've been around for millions of years. Since I've used this example at 150 different clubs and groups, I've learned a little bit about them, but that's something I don't know much about. Towards the top end, not at the complete knowledge, usually I use my experience as a city manager and municipal management consultant, because I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And when I still do work, I spend the first couple of days just listening to people to find out what they're dealing with. Down at the bottom, not a little bit above minimal knowledge, I always use wine as an example, because I don't know much about wine. If somebody offers me a glass of wine, I'll take a glass of red wine. I don't know why, but that's just it. But I have 6 sisters and 3 brothers. One of my sisters married a guy who really loves wine. I've never seen him drink too much, but he's a real connoisseur. And he's been over to France at the Cordon Bleu cooking school a couple of times, and now that he's retired, semi-retired, he goes to France for 3 or 4 weeks every fall and rents a villa, and then he rents a bike and he bikes around to taste wine all day. So when we have a family gathering, which are usually pretty big until COVID happened, I would not just pick up a bottle of Bogan David or Gallo wine. I'd call my brother-in-law Jeff and say, hey, what would people like? And it wasn't always expensive stuff. It's just he knew, because he knew a heck of a lot more than I do, which I think in so many things we need to recognize that about our knowledge. And it's somewhere on that continuum, and it's seldom at 100%. And then, is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? I think if you answer yes to all 4 of those questions and everything we say and do, it builds character. And I think that's one of the nice things I've enjoyed about speaking to so many Rotary clubs, because I meet people of good character. And they are doing good things, and so I urge you to continue to be a member. So one of the things I did with this is everybody has an app these days for things. So one of the things that I did have, because I've got all kinds of brothers and sisters, I got all kinds of nephews and nieces. One of them's a computer engineer. He put an app together for me called Be a Better You, Babu for short. But one of the things that the Rotary Club here sent out to you ahead of time is a sheet that has 10 different things that you can rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. It's just something to look at yourself and see if there are some areas that you can get better at. And I usually pick out 1 or 2 every week, and then if you go to the website, you can put down what you're going to do, and you can get a reminder of it. So I have an old-time app as a reminder for me and it's called a Post-it note. And the Post-it note that I always carry with me and have for many, many years is to shut up and listen. Because I think that's for me, not for anybody else, for me. And that's, I know, something that I have found is so important in managing people and just working with people in general, whether you're managing them or not. So you can get this free app. Go to the website that shows up at the end here. But and you can assess yourself on these 10 different things. Usually do it weekly or bi-weekly. But the first one is listening, and because I think that's such a key to how we can successfully manage. And as I say, it's shut up and listen, but listen to deeply understand what they're saying. I know a lot of times when I've worked with groups, people say, well, I don't have time to do this. And I guess from my own management experience, it takes some time and it takes some courage, but it pays off. You usually only have to deal with an issue once and then you can move on. But I think it's a reflection of your character. And when you do that, you get the best information and ideas and experience of everyone. It leads to a better solution, builds consensus and commitment. Everyone takes responsibility and you only deal with a problem once. To me, if you can do that in any management issue, you've done a wonderful job and everything moves forward in a much better way, and everybody's a part of it. Involving employees in defining and solving a problem. Again, this is something I learned from one of my first bosses, and I was working as an assistant village manager in a suburb of Chicago. And in Chicago, those days, I think they still are, I don't live there now, but they sell city stickers for your vehicles. And we were having some complaints from the residents about the system and how it was working and so on. And I remember sitting there with the city manager and the mayor, and we're talking about how we can fix this. And we didn't have a clue in many ways. So we finally said, let's call Ilse up here. She sells them. She knows what she's doing. She came back and told us a few things, and the problem was solved in 5 minutes because she dealt with it every day. And that I never forgot that, because I know when I've worked for some other organizations, I've had some good ideas, but nobody really listens to you. And I think you should rate yourself. Do you really involve employees in defining and solving problems? Not be afraid to be challenged by employees. One of the things I've found out over the years, most of the bad behaviors of supervisors or bosses comes because they're afraid. They're afraid they're going to lose power, they're going to lose credibility, and they're going to look weak or indecisive if they change their mind. I can just tell you that's absolutely not true. If you listen to people and work with them and accept their challenges, that doesn't mean you agree with them all the time any more than they'll agree with you, but that you all the time. But you listen to them and you get their input. Helping our people grow. I always think of this in terms of performance evaluation. That really kind of started up in much more detail in the 70s and 80s. I always looked at it as like going to the dentist, and because you knew it was going to be an unpleasant situation, whether you were doing the evaluation or being evaluated. But I think one of the things that I learned over the years, and again, when you're doing evaluations, really look at how you can bring out the best in people. Identify what they're good at, what they want to get better at. Helping our people solve work-related problems. We hear people that work for us tell us they've got to have this or they want this or they'd like this. And to just be able to help them on a timely basis. I know when one group I was working with, it was a city government, and part of it was the Public Works Department. And they had a big building with all kinds of trucks and everything in there. But one of the people that had been there for a number of years says, you know, it would really make a big difference to all of us if we could have a water fountain at the other end of the building. And so the Public Works Director got one in there pretty shortly, and it just changed so much of the attitude of people that they could be part of something and get something. And it didn't take much of anything, of money or time, to get that to happen. And I think, again, when people come to you with problems, really make an effort to help them resolve it. genuinely respecting and caring for employees. I always think, why should we do that? My other app in my book over here, post-it note, is respect everyone. Because I guess if I sit down with you, I would hope you'd respect what I think and what I'm trying to do, and I would do the same with you. There's all kinds of philosophical and psychological and religious reasons to respect people, but it just gets more done, and it gets it done better. And people can pick up on that, whether or not you really respect them or not. Treating everyone equitably and fairly, something else to evaluate yourself on. I think we all think we should be doing that, and maybe we are, but we're not doing it all the time. Are there some people who have favorites of yours? Do you have the same patience and understanding for everyone? Do you equitably share praise for work that is well done? Again, just evaluate yourself. And on the app, you can evaluate yourself from 1 to 5. You're the only one who's going to know it. I won't, and I don't want to know it. But and then come up with a suggestion for yourself on how you might be able to improve that in the next week or two. And learning as broadly as possible. I'm very big on grow our mind every day. And a lot of this goes back to that quote from Einstein, that genius is the ability to see the connection between things that nobody else sees. And I'm not a genius, but I've had people come to me with problems lots of times, and you hear it from one party, and then you hear a different story from another party, and then you hear a different story for another party. And that's why I guess I try to learn all the time, and not just things related to my work, but as broadly as possible, because I think that helps us understand more when we're trying to solve problems. And then again, that goes back to the Einstein definition of genius, the ability to see connections between things that no one else sees. And being a person of our word, again, I think we always think we're doing that, but I know we don't always do it. I don't. I try to be. One of the things when I wrote the book, a business reporter in the Chicago Tribune wrote a article and reviewed my book, and it was really a wonderful review. I thought my mom wrote it, and but one of the things he did at the end of each year, he had some of the authors back for a second try at something, and he asked about New Year's resolutions. And one of the things he talked about, and I talked about, is we're very good in many ways keeping our word with others, but we don't really keep it to ourselves. I don't know how many of you have made a New Year's resolution and forgot about it by February 1st, but I know I've done that a number of times. And again, I think being a person of our word for ourselves is also very important. And being healthy. I think we all have issues to deal with, but I look at yourself. Do you exercise regularly? Do you eat a healthy diet? Are you willing to invest some time in getting healthier? And I always think of this because I've been on both sides of the bargaining table. I helped organize a union in one place, and I've been on the other side as a manager in other places. And every time before I'd go to negotiate, I'd go out for a walk or a run, get the endorphins going, and come and sit down and we'll work this out. Doesn't mean everything is easy, but again, I think, is your health as good as it can be to help you solve issues within your organization? So to improve your character, you have to evaluate yourself. You have to invest some time in it, but I think it's worth doing that. And one of the things I think about investing some time and getting better at something, Carnegie Hall, the picture's up there on the screen. If you get to Carnegie Hall, you're one of the best musicians in the world. And you don't get there unless you're not. And there was a story of a couple visiting New York, and they were trying to find Carnegie Hall, and they couldn't find it. And they're walking around the streets, and they finally see a guy with a violin case walking, and they say, well, maybe he knows where Carnegie Hall is. So they stopped and asked him, and they said, could you tell us how to get to Carnegie Hall? And he said, practice, practice, practice. And I never forgot that because I don't care what we're doing, we have to practice. That's one reason I put the app up, because you can get a reminder. You can get a reminder every day. I know for me, I just try to get set it to give me a reminder on Mondays when I'm starting out a new week. And what did I do this past week? Did I get any better at it, or should I be looking at something else? So practice, practice, practice is important. None of us will ever be perfect. I guess being one of 10 kids, I found that early on. None of us was. And my 6 sisters, they always told us, guys, we need to grow up, and we tell them we're still working on it. So it takes longer for us, but in any case, we can always get better. And so, again, I like kind of simple things in front of me to remind me of what I should be doing. Grow your heart and mind every day is something that I think helps us become a better manager. And you can use the app. So that's the presentation. I hope you find it helpful. It really is important on how you manage people to get the best out of everybody. And I guess one last example I didn't include before, but asking people who do the work every day how to do it better. One of my first jobs out of college was working as a foundry foreman in a foundry in Cicero, Illinois. And we made big, heavy cast iron metal parts. And next time you see a train going by on a crossing, look at those big things at the bottom of the train that the wheels are embedded in. We used to make those things, and they were huge. And I was a first-line supervisor, and I met with the union because they were always they wanted to find better ways to do things. That way they figured they could make more money and the company could make more money. So I met with them, and I never forget, and this is almost 60 years ago, the union steward was Obadiah, Jeremiah, Abraham Lincoln, John Wells. We all called him Obie because that was a heck of a lot easier. But we sat down with him and the workers, and we said, let's put all this together and take it to the bosses and see if they'll let us do it. And the company had never turned out 50 tons of castings in one 8-hour shift. And we told them we think we can beat that. So we got everything set up, and a week later we spent the day doing it, making all the changes and improvements that everybody suggested. And by the end of the day, we had 51 tons of castings. So the employees got a little more money. The companies made more, sold more product. And I guess I've never forgot that either, about getting the best out of the people that work with you, because I just know myself, I always had good ideas that if somebody would listen to me, maybe we'd do things a little better. So anyway, thank you for your attention, and it's so nice to be with Rotary clubs. I'm not a Rotarian. I was many years ago. But my job took me traveling all over, and in the old days you had to go to every meeting or make them up somewhere, and that wasn't working for me at all. But it was so nice to come back to the Rotary clubs to speak to you folks about 10 years ago, because you do wonderful things, and keep it up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
We do have a few questions, and in the interest of time, I'll combine them.
Okay.
So, our Rotarians would like to know, how do you reconcile the fact that there are many truths in most daily situations, and how do you handle when different people have a disagreement about what the truth actually is?
Well, the first thing for me, again, is to really listen and understand and have people feed back what they hear other people saying. You know, we hear people say things and we make our own judgments about them. I have found over the years working with, I've been, as a city manager, for instance, you can come in to a council meeting and there's 100 people in the room and 98 of them don't like what the city's doing. And I found if you really listen to them and then feed back to them what you heard, that they know you understand what they're concerned. You don't have to agree on everything to get, but if they understand that you understand what they're upset about, and it's the same with groups or individuals, then at least I think they're usually able to listen to you a little bit. Because, and once you get to that point, whether it's with individuals or groups, you start looking for solutions. because you find out you're really not enemies. And I saw the Braver Angels conversation you're talking about over there. I've been a big promoter of that for over the years as well. But I guess that part of really listening, understanding, and
Once upon a time, 1942 to be precise.
As well, none of us has all the answers. I learned that a long time ago. But and frankly, we need everybody to solve problems. And maybe one time your solution will be get more support, not only just from me, but if you're in a group, they get it from others. And people say, okay, well, they heard me and we're making this little adjustment, but we'll get it done. That's so important to me anyway. That's it. Okay, 1942 you had up there. That's the year I was born. I didn't know if there was a birthday celebration. Thank you.
Thank you again, Bob. And Rotarians, why don't we give our speaker a round of applause? All right. So before we adjourn our meeting, we'll listen to the 1-minute video that was provided by the Madison Community Foundation in honor of hosting today's meeting.
Once upon a time, 1942 to be precise, Madison Community Trust was established. The trust story began as an endeavor to support soldiers returning from World War II. Over time, the trust evolved into Madison Community Foundation, an unparalleled community resource driven by people who love the Madison area and defined by a mission to inspire giving, support meaningful initiatives, and connect people for the common good.
How does MCF work? Donors give MCF cash, stock, mutual funds, real estate, personal property, and other assets as gifts. Those gifts become the building blocks of permanent endowment funds. MCF invests the assets in the endowments using earnings and growth to provide grants that fund projects and programs in the greater Madison area. Sometimes donors advise those grants. Sometimes they rely on MCF to determine how best to use those resources.
Madison Community Foundation has a pivotal role in bringing projects that make Madison, Madison to life.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today's meetings. Rotarians, we are adjourned.